My mother called me a failure in front of my smirking in-laws, saying I'd never be independent. She had no idea I owned the apartment complex they lived in. My response left her stunned. I stared at my phone, reading the message from my mother for the 10th time. Family dinner tonight, don't be late like always. My stomach churned at the thought of another evening of subtle jabs and disappointed looks. I'm Alexandra, and at 34, I own one of the most profitable real estate ventures in the city. Not that my family knows this. To them, I'm just Steven's wife who does something with apartments. The irony, they all live in my building. Earth to Alex. Audrey waved her hand in front of my face, bringing me back to our lunch meeting. You're thinking about the dinner, aren't you? How can I not? I pushed my salad around the plate. Mom's already starting with the texts. You know how she gets when Steven's family is involved. You could always tell them, you know. Audrey raised an eyebrow. About owning the building? About everything? And give up the piece of being underestimated? I forced a laugh. Besides, it's better this way. Easier to manage tenants who don't know you're the owner. My phone buzzed again. This time it was Hope, my sister-in-law. Mom wants to know if you're bringing anything tonight. Maybe something store-bought since we know how busy you are? God, the passive-aggressive emojis, I muttered, showing Audrey the message. Remind me again why you let them live in your building? Because I'm a masochist? I sighed. Actually, it was Steven's idea. He thought it would help everyone stay close if he only knew. The truth was, I'd built my empire quietly over the past decade, starting with one small property, then another, until I owned half the residential blocks in our area. The crown jewel? The luxury apartment complex where my mother, my in-laws, and Steven's sister all lived, blissfully unaware that their rent checks went straight to my company. Miss Whitfield? Maria, my assistant, approached our table. The contractors are ready for the walkthrough at the new development. Thanks, Maria. I'll be there in 10. I turned back to Audrey. Duty calls. Alex, wait. Audrey grabbed my wrist. Promise me something? Don't let your mom get to you tonight. Remember who you really are? I nodded, but we both knew better. My mother, Yvette, had a special talent for finding my weak spots. Ever since I was little, nothing I did was quite good enough. Even marrying Steven, a successful architect, somehow fell short of her expectations. The afternoon flew by in a blur of meetings and site inspections. Before I knew it, I was standing outside my mother's apartment, my apartment, technically, smoothing down my simple black dress. There you are. Steven appeared behind me, fresh from work. I was worried you'd get caught up at the office. I let him kiss my cheek, grateful for his constant support, even if he didn't know the full extent of my success. We'd kept our finances separate by mutual agreement, and he never questioned the comfortable lifestyle my small business provided. Ready? He asked, reaching for the doorbell, as I'll ever be. The door swung open to reveal my mother, perfectly coiffed as always. Finally, everyone's been waiting. Michael and Hope brought the most wonderful wine. Michael, my brother-in-law, stood in the living room with a smug smile. Hey Alex, rough day at the office? You look tired. Actually, I started, but Mom cut me off. Alexandra dear, you really should do something about those dark circles. I keep telling you working so hard at your age will only lead to wrinkles. I caught Alyssa, Mom's best friend and neighbor, hiding a smile behind her wine glass. She lived in the penthouse apartment, my most expensive unit, and never missed a chance to witness my mother's special brand of criticism. Steven. My mother turned to my husband. The promotion at your firm is such wonderful news. At least one of you is moving up in the world. I felt my phone vibrate in my purse, probably Audrey checking in. She knew how these dinners usually went. Instead of checking it, I plastered on my best smile and headed for the kitchen to help Hope with the dishes. Don't worry about helping, Hope called out. I know you're not really the domestic type. I gripped the counter, taking deep breaths. If they only knew that I'd signed a multi-million-dollar deal just this morning, that the renovation they were all complaining about in the building's east wing was actually part of my expansion plan. That every comfort they enjoyed in this overpriced apartment complex was thanks to my business acumen. But tonight wasn't the night for revelations. At least, that's what I thought until my mother's voice carried from the dining room. Everyone, please sit down. I have an announcement to make about the building management. My head snapped up. Something in her tone made my stomach drop. Maybe tonight would be more interesting than I'd planned. I hurried to the dining room, my heart pounding. Mom stood at the head of the table, wine glass in hand, commanding everyone's attention like a queen addressing her subjects. The building management has been absolutely terrible lately, she announced. That's why I've started a petition to have them replaced. The wine I just sipped went down the wrong way. I coughed, and Steven patted my back concernedly. You okay? He whispered. I nodded, unable to speak as my mother continued. I've already gathered signatures from most of the residents on our floor, she said proudly. Elisa, you'll sign too, won't you? Elisa nodded enthusiastically. Of course, the maintenance response times have been dreadful. I bit my tongue. Those dreadful response times were due to a complete overhaul of the building's electrical system, an upgrade I'd ordered after finding out the previous owner had cut corners. Alexandra, Michael chimed in, swirling his wine glass. You work in real estate, don't you? Maybe you could actually do something useful and help us with this petition. I don't think, I started, but Mom cut me off again. Oh, please. Alexandra barely knows anything about proper real estate. She just handles paperwork for that tiny management company. Right, dear? Stephen shifted uncomfortably beside me. Actually, Yvette, Alex runs her own dinner, looks wonderful, I interrupted, not ready for Stephen to defend my honor. Hope, did you make the lasagna? Store-bought, Hope admitted. Some of us are too busy with actual careers to cook from scratch. The dig wasn't subtle. Last month I declined to join her MLM scheme, citing work commitments. She hadn't forgiven me since. Speaking of careers, my mother set down her glass. Michael just made partner at his law firm. Now that's what I call success. Congratulations, I managed, though the word tasted bitter. Thanks, Alex. Michael's smile was razor sharp. You know, if you ever want to move up from pushing papers, I could put in a word at our real estate division. Entry level, of course. The table erupted in poorly concealed snickers. Even Stephen looked uncomfortable now. I appreciate the offer, but Alexandra, my mother interrupted yet again. You really should consider it. Lord knows you need direction in your life. 34, and what do you have to show for it? The room fell silent. I could feel everyone's eyes on me. Mom, I said quietly, I'm doing fine. Fine isn't good enough. She slammed her hand on the table, making the silverware jump. Look at everyone else here. Stephen's up for partner. Michael's already made it. Hope runs her own business. Even Elisa's daughter just bought her first house. But you? You're still playing and having a career. That's enough, Stephen started. But Mom was on a roll. No, it needs to be said. I'm tired of watching my daughter waste her potential. Do you know what people say? They wonder why Stephen stays with someone so underachieving. The word hung in the air like poison. I felt my cheeks burn, not with embarrassment but with rage. Mother, let me finish. I've arranged an interview for you at Michael's firm, a real job with real prospects. It's time you stop pretending to be a businesswoman and the maintenance issues, I cut in. My voice steady despite my racing heart, are because we're upgrading the electrical system. The old wiring wasn't up to code. Everyone stared at me. And how would you know that? Michael asked, condescension dripping from every word. I pulled out my phone, opened my emails, and slid it across the table to my mother because I approved the work order 3 weeks ago. What are you talking about? She squinted at the screen. The petition won't do anything, Mom. The management company reports directly to the owner. I took a deep breath. And the owner doesn't respond well to threats. And how exactly would you know what the owner thinks? Hope asked, her voice sharp. I stood up slowly, feeling a strange calm settle over me. Years of hiding, of swallowing their insults, of letting them believe what they wanted. It all seemed to crystallize in this moment. Because, I said, looking each of them in the eye, you're all having dinner in my building. The silence that followed was deafening. Stephen's fork clattered to his plate. Michael's smug smile froze. Hope's mouth hung open. And my mother? My mother's face went through a fascinating series of expressions before settling on disbelief. You're lying, she whispered. I reached for my purse. Would you like to see the deed? The screech of chair legs against hardwood floor broke the silence as my mother stood up. This isn't funny, Alexandra. I'm not trying to be funny. I kept my voice level, though my hands trembled slightly as I reached into my purse. Stephen, my mother turned to my husband. Did you know about this? Stephen looked as stunned as everyone else. Alex, what's going on? Before I could answer, my phone buzzed. Audrey's name flashed on the screen. Perfect timing as always. Excuse me, I said, stepping away from the table. I need to take this. Don't you dare walk away from this conversation. My mother's voice rose sharply. I answered the phone anyway, walking to the kitchen. Hey, Audrey. How's the dinner from hell going? Actually, I just told them. Told them what? A pause. Wait. You didn't that I own the building? Yeah, I did. Holy shit, Alex, I'm coming over. No. Don't, but she'd already hung up. When I returned to the dining room, Michael was on his phone, presumably fact-checking my claim. Hope was whispering frantically to Stephen. My mother stood rigid, her face pale. This is impossible, Michael declared, looking up from his phone. The building is owned by AW Properties. Aw, I said slowly, Alexandra Whitfield. But Hope's voice was small. That would mean I own not just this building but the entire block. I sat back down, reaching for my wine glass and the development across town and the new complex being built on River Street. You're lying, my mother repeated, but her voice wavered. The front door burst open and Audrey strode in carrying a folder. Sorry to interrupt family dinner, but I thought these might help. Who are you? My mother demanded. Audrey Gross, CFO of AW Properties. She dropped the folder on the table. And your daughter's business partner. Michael snatched up the folder, his lawyer instincts kicking in. As he flipped through the documents, his face grew increasingly pale. These are legitimate, he muttered. Property deeds, tax records, business licenses, Alex? Stephen touched my arm gently. Why didn't you tell me? I wanted to, I said softly. But at first, it was just easier to keep things separate. And then it became entertaining, Audrey finished, earning herself a glare from my mother. Entertaining? Yvette spat. You think making fools of your family is entertaining? No, Mother. What's entertaining is watching you complain about building management to my face for the past 3 years. Hope gasped. The rent increases were necessary for the improvements you all demanded, I finished. Though I did give everyone in this room friends and family discounts. You're welcome. This is why you wouldn't join my business opportunity, Hope realized. Hope, I gross more in a month than your MLM makes in a year. Michael let out a low whistle, still examining the documents. These profit margins are impressive. Thank you, Michael. Still want to offer me that entry-level position? His face reddened. Audrey snorted. I don't understand, my mother said, sinking back into her chair. When did you remember that inheritance from Grandma? I asked. The one you said I was foolish to invest in property instead of buying a bigger house? That was seed money, Audrey explained. Alex turned 50,000 into an empire while keeping it quiet because certain people, she glanced pointedly around the table, might have undermined her if they'd known. Stephen stood up suddenly. I need some air. Stephen, wait. I started to follow him, but Audrey caught my arm. Let him process, she whispered. This is a lot to take in. Well, Alyssa spoke for the first time since my revelation. I suppose this explains why my maintenance requests were always handled so quickly. Actually, I turned to her. Your requests were handled quickly because you're a good tenant who doesn't make unreasonable demands, unlike some people. I looked meaningfully at my mother. How dare you? Mom's voice shook. I am your mother. Yes, you are. And you're also my tenant. Speaking of which, I pulled out my phone. Should we discuss that petition now? The room fell silent again. I could see the wheels turning in everyone's heads, reassessing every interaction we'd had over the years. I think, Audrey said, breaking the tension. This might be a good time to tell them about the River Street development. What about it? Michael asked sharply. I smiled, feeling a weight lift from my shoulders. After years of hiding my success, of swallowing their condescension, of playing small to keep the peace, I was finally free to be myself. Well, I said, let's just say the rent increases here will seem minimal compared to what's coming in that neighborhood. My mother's face went from pale to red. Alexandra Marie Whitfield, you wouldn't dare. But for the first time in my life, I knew exactly how much power I held, and I wasn't afraid to use it. Wouldn't dare what, Mother? I leaned forward. Raise the rent, enforce the building's policies, or maybe just start treating my investments like the business they are? You can't do this to your own family, Hope interjected, her voice trembling. Actually, Audrey pulled out another document. According to Section 8 of your lease agreements, we can adjust rent with 60 days' notice. Michael grabbed the lease, scanning it frantically. This is standard language, but surely what? I stood up. Surely, I wouldn't exercise my legal rights? Surely, I'd continue to let you all live here at below market rates while you mock my career? The door opened, and Stephen walked back in. His face composed but serious. We need to talk, Alex. Stephen, my mother latched onto him like a lifeline. Surely you'll talk some sense into her? Actually, Yvette, he said quietly. I think I need to talk to my wife about why she felt she couldn't trust me with this. The words hit me like a slap. Stephen, it wasn't about trust. Really? He ran a hand through his hair. Because finding out my wife owns half the city during a family dinner feels a lot like a trust issue. Oh, this is rich. My mother scoffed. She's been lying to everyone and you're all acting like she's the victim. I never lied, I snapped. I just didn't correct your assumptions. There's a difference that cost you your family's trust, Michael added smugly. Audrey stepped forward. Okay, enough. Alex, we have that meeting with the investors tomorrow morning. Maybe we should investors? Stephen's head snapped up. What investors? I took a deep breath. We're expanding. The River Street development is just the beginning. We're planning to acquire the old factory district and convert it into mixed-use properties. That's a multi-million-dollar project, Michael said, his legal mind clearly running calculations. Try multi-billion, Audrey corrected, and Alex is the majority stakeholder. The room erupted in chaos. Hope started crying about family loyalty. Michael began spouting legal terms. My mother launched into a tirade about deceit and manipulation, but all I could focus on was Stephen's face. When were you going to tell me? He asked softly. I was waiting for the right time. The right time? He laughed bitterly. Like when? When you own the entire city? That's not fair, I protested. No. You know what's not fair? He gestured around the room. All of this, making me look like an idiot in front of everyone. Did you enjoy it? Watching us all fumble around in the dark while you pulled the strings? Stephen, please, I need some time. He headed for the door. I'll be at Mark's place tonight. The door closed behind him with a finality that made my chest ache, but I couldn't fall apart. Not now. Not in front of them. Well, my mother's voice dripped with satisfaction. I hope you're happy. You've managed to destroy your marriage along with everything else. Actually, Yvette, Audrey stepped in, her voice ice cold. The only thing being destroyed here is the illusion that you could keep belittling Alex forever without consequences. How dare you speak to me that way in my home? It's not your home, I said quietly. It's my property. And speaking of which, I pulled out my phone and opened my email. I think it's time we reviewed everyone's lease terms. You wouldn't, Hope whispered. Try me. I started typing. Maria, please send me the current market rates for comparable units in the area, and schedule a building-wide inspection for next week. It's time we ensured all units are up to code. Alexandra, my mother's voice wavered. You're being ridiculous. No, Mother, I'm being a businesswoman. Isn't that what you always wanted? Michael stood up, straightening his tie. This isn't over. We'll have our lawyers review everything. Please do. Audrey smiled. I'm sure they'd love to go up against our legal team. Alex, Hope pleaded. Think about what you're doing. I looked around the table at their faces, shocked, angry, betrayed. The family that had dismissed me for years now, suddenly realizing they'd been living in my shadow all along. I have thought about it, I said, standing up. I've thought about it every time you mocked my career, every time you dismissed my achievements, every time you made me feel small. And now I gathered my purse and nodded to Audrey. Now I'm done thinking. It's time for action. As we walked toward the door, my mother called out, You'll regret this. I turned back one last time. No, Mother. The only thing I regret is not doing this sooner. The door closed behind us, and for the first time that evening, I allowed myself to smile. The truth was finally out, but somehow this felt less like an ending and more like a beginning. The next morning, my phone exploded with notifications. 17 missed calls from my mother, 23 text messages from Hope, and 1 email from Michael's law firm. They work fast, Audrey commented, reading over my shoulder in our office. But their threats are empty. Everything's ironclad. It's not the legal threats I'm worried about. I showed her the latest text from Stephen. We need to talk. Coming by the office at noon. Want me to stay? No, I need to handle this myself. I rubbed my temples. How's the damage control going? Your mother's been calling every tenant in the building, trying to rally support. Audrey smirked. Turns out people aren't too keen on backing someone against their landlord. My phone buzzed again. Hope, Mom's having a breakdown. How could you do this to her? Delete, I muttered, swiping the message away. Any word from the investors? They're still in. Actually, they're more interested now that they know you're not just some silent partner. The whole secret successful woman angle is apparently very appealing. A knock at the door made us both look up. Stephen stood there looking tired but determined. I'll give you two some privacy, Audrey said, gathering her papers. Stephen took her vacant seat, his eyes taking in my corner office with its floor-to-ceiling windows and city views. So this is where you really work, he said finally. Stephen, let me finish. He held up a hand. I spent all night thinking about this, about us, about why you felt you needed to hide everything. I didn't hide it because of you, I said softly, didn't you? He leaned forward. We've been married for 5 years, Alex. 5 years of me thinking we were equals, partners. And all this time we are equals, I protested. Your career is just as successful. My career? He laughed. I'm up for partner at my firm, sure. But you own half the city. You're about to close a $1 billion deal. How is that equal? Money isn't everything. No. But trust is. He pulled out his phone. Did you know your mother sent me your company's financial records this morning? Trying to prove you've been deceiving me about our prenup. My stomach dropped. Stephen, I can explain. You don't have to. I already knew you had separate assets. I respected that. What I can't respect is the lying. I never lied. Lies of omission are still lies, Alex. His voice rose, then he caught himself. Do you know how foolish I feel? All those times I defended you to your mother, telling her you were doing well in your small business, I was the biggest joke of all. You weren't a joke? I reached for his hand, but he pulled away. I needed something that was mine, something they couldn't criticize or control. And what am I in all this? Just another pawn in your game? Of course not. I love you. Do you? He stood up. Because from where I'm standing, you love power more than honesty. A knock at the door interrupted us. Maria poked her head in. Miss Whitfield, Your mother's in the lobby demanding to see you. Security's asking what to do. I closed my eyes briefly. Tell them to escort her out and have legal draw up a formal warning about harassment. You're having your own mother thrown out? Stephen shook his head. Listen to yourself. What choice do I have? She's trying to undermine my business, my marriage. Your business? He laughed bitterly. That's all you care about, isn't it? Well, congratulations, you've won. You've proven you're better than all of us. I hope it was worth it. Stephen, please. I'll have my lawyer contact you about the divorce proceedings. The word hit me like a physical blow. Divorce? You can't be serious. Actually, I am. For the first time I see you clearly. He walked to the door then paused. You know what's ironic? Your mother always said you'd never amount to anything. Turns out you amounted to exactly what she is. Someone who values control over love. He left before I could respond. Through the glass walls I watched him walk past the reception area. Past Audrey returning with coffee, past the AW Properties logo I'd worked so hard to build. My phone buzzed again. A text from Hope. Mom's being escorted out by security. I hope you're happy with what you've done to this family. I started to reply, then stopped. What could I say? That I was sorry for succeeding? Sorry for finally standing up for myself? Sorry for Alex. Audrey stood in the doorway. The investors are here early. Should I reschedule? I straightened my spine, wiped my eyes and stood up. No. Show them in. Are you sure? After what just happened? What just happened is exactly why I built all this, I said, gesturing to the office. So I'd never have to depend on anyone else's approval again. But as I walked to the conference room, my mother's words echoed in my head. You'll regret this. The question was, had I already started to? 3 days after the investor meeting, I sat in my office reviewing lease termination notices when Michael walked in unannounced. Your security team needs work, he said, dropping into the chair across from me. I just told them I was your lawyer. You're not my lawyer, Michael. And impersonating one is a crime. Speaking of crimes, he pulled out a folder. I've been doing some digging. Of course you have. I didn't look up from my computer. How's Mom? Having a nervous breakdown thanks to you? Hope staying with her. In my apartment, I assume? Michael's jaw tightened. About that, these lease termination notices are completely legal. I finally met his eyes. Your rent is going up to market rate in 60 days. You can either pay it or move out. This is revenge, plain and simple. No, this is business. I turned my screen around to show him the spreadsheets. I've been subsidizing your lifestyles for years. Time to end that particular charity. And Stephen, is ruining your marriage also business? My fingers froze over the keyboard. That's none of your concern. Actually, it is. Because while you've been playing real estate mogul, you've destroyed every relationship you had. Was it worth it? Are you here for a reason, Michael? Besides amateur psychology? He leaned forward. I have a proposal. Not interested. Hear me out. He opened the folder. You're planning to develop the old factory district, but there's a problem with the zoning laws that your team missed. I raised an eyebrow. And I can help you navigate it in exchange for some considerations. You mean blackmail? I mean family taking care of family. He smiled thinly. Keep our rents where they are. Back off this vindictive campaign against your mother, and I'll make sure your development goes through smoothly. I started laughing. I couldn't help it. Something funny? He asked. Actually, yes. I pulled out my own folder. You see, I knew you'd try something like this, so I had my actual lawyers look into your firm's handling of the zoning board. His smile faltered. Interesting reading, I continued. All those private meetings, the convenient rezoning decisions, I wonder what the ethics board would make of it. You're bluffing, try me. I stood up. Now about those lease terminations, my office door burst open. Hope stormed in, her face streaked with tears. You heartless bitch. Hope. Michael started. No, she needs to hear this. Hope slammed her hands on my desk. Mom's in the hospital. Anxiety attack. Are you happy now? I felt a flicker of concern, quickly suppressed. That's unfortunate, but nothing. You did this. You and your stupid revenge plot. Revenge? I laughed again, but it sounded hollow even to me. I'm just running my business. Your business? Hope's voice rose hysterically. What about your family? What about Stephen? Stephen made his choice. No. You made it for him when you decided money and power were more important than love. My phone buzzed. A text from Audrey. Stephen's lawyer just delivered the divorce papers. Want me to handle it? Get out, I said quietly. What? Hope blinked. Both of you, get out of my office. You have 60 days to find new apartments. If you can't afford market rate, I suggest you start looking now. Michael stood slowly. You'll regret this, Alex. When you're alone with nothing but your money, I said get out. I pressed the security button under my desk. And next time you try to impersonate my lawyer, I'll have you reported to the Bar Association. 2 security guards appeared almost instantly. Hope let them lead her out, still crying. Michael followed more slowly, pausing at the door. "You know what's sad?" he said. "You've become exactly what you always hated about your mother, cold, controlling, and completely alone." After they left, Audrey came in with coffee and a concerned expression. I heard shouting. "You okay?" "Fine." I stared at the divorce papers on my desk. "Have legal review these and schedule an inspection of Mom's unit for tomorrow. Alex." Audrey sat down. "Maybe we should take a step back. Consider what? Letting them win? Backing down? Considering that maybe, just maybe, you're letting this revenge thing go too far." I picked up the lease termination notices, my hands shaking slightly. "It's not revenge, it's consequences, is it? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks a lot like you're burning every bridge you've ever built." My phone buzzed again. A message from Steven. "Sign the papers. Hope you find what you're looking for." I closed my eyes, feeling the weight of everything I'd gained and lost in the past week. "The investors loved your presentation," Audrey said softly. "The Factory District project is going to make you one of the most powerful developers in the city." "Yeah," I whispered, looking at Steven's message again. "But at what cost?" A week later, I stood in my mother's empty apartment surrounded by the echoes of family dinners and bitter arguments. She'd been discharged from the hospital yesterday and moved in with Hope, leaving behind 30 years of memories and a hastily scrawled note. "I hope you're satisfied. The inspection team found code violations," Audrey said, flipping through her tablet. "Unauthorized modifications to the electrical system, non-compliant bathroom renovations." She always did think rules didn't apply to her. I ran my finger along the dining room table where everything had fallen apart. "Alex!" a familiar voice called from the doorway. "Steven." "I'll give you 2 a minute," Audrey said, squeezing my arm as she left. Steven looked different, tired. He'd loosened his tie and rolled up his sleeves, something he only did when stressed. "Your lawyer said you haven't signed the papers," he said. "Been busy." I gestured around the empty apartment. "Family drama. You know? I heard about your mom, the hospital. Did you also hear about the illegal renovations, the attempts to blackmail me?" Stop. He held up his hand. "Just stop. This isn't you, isn't it? Everyone seems pretty convinced I'm turning into my mother." "No." He stepped closer. "Your mother would never have built something like this. She tears things down. You used to build things up." "Used to? Before this revenge campaign took over your life?" He picked up the note from the table. "Was it worth it? Winning?" Before I could answer, my phone rang. Hope's name flashed on the screen. "Aren't you going to answer it?" Steven asked. I did, putting it on speaker. "Hello? Mom's getting worse." Hope's voice cracked. "The doctors say it's severe anxiety and depression. She keeps saying she has nothing left to live for. That's manipulative, even for her." "God, listen to yourself," Hope shouted. "Your own mother is falling apart, and you're acting like it's a business transaction gone wrong. What do you want from me, Hope?" "I want my sister-in-law back, the one who helped me move into my first apartment. The one who supported me when I lost my job. Not this monster who cares more about power than people." Steven watched me, his expression unreadable. "I'm not a monster," I said quietly. "I'm just what? Successful? Powerful? Alone?" Hope's voice broke. "Congratulations. You've won. Mom's broken. Michael's firm is investigating him for ethics violations, and Steven's leaving you. I hope your empire was worth it." The line went dead. "She's right, you know," Steven said softly. "This isn't about business anymore. It's about punishment. They deserved it," I whispered, but the words felt hollow. "Did they? Did I?" He moved closer. "The Alex I married wanted success to prove something to herself, not to destroy others. I didn't destroy." "Really?" He pulled out his phone, showing me social media posts. My mother looking frail in a hospital bed, Hope's tearful updates about family tragedy, Michael's cryptic posts about betrayal. "They're playing the victims?" I protested. "No, they're being human. Something you seem to have forgotten how to be." My phone buzzed again. "Audrey, investors want to meet. Something about concerns over negative publicity. Perfect." I laughed bitterly. "Even the empire is starting to crumble." "Good," Steven said. "Good? Yes, good. Because maybe now you'll remember what really matters." "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means I didn't fall in love with AW Properties. I fell in love with Alexandra, the woman who wanted to build something meaningful, not tear everything down out of spite." I sank into a dining room chair, the same one I'd sat in during that fateful dinner. "I don't know how to fix this." "Yes, you do." He sat across from me. "You're a builder, Alex. You've always been good at fixing broken things. The question is, do you want to fix this, or do you want to keep breaking it?" My phone buzzed again. Another message from Hope. "Mom's asking for you." Steven stood up. The divorce papers are still on your desk, but so is the key to fixing all of this. Your choice. He walked to the door, then paused. You know what the difference is between you and your mother? I looked up. She tears things down because she's afraid of being small. You build things up because you know how big you really are. At least you used to. After he left, I sat in the empty apartment surrounded by the consequences of my actions. The empire I'd built suddenly felt as hollow as the rooms around me. My phone lit up one more time, a photo from Hope, my mother in her hospital bed looking small and defeated, clutching an old family photo of us. And for the first time since this all began, I felt something crack inside me. Maybe it was time to build something new, something better. The hospital corridor seemed endless as I walked toward my mother's room, clutching a folder of papers. Hope sat outside, her eyes widening when she saw me. What are you doing here? Fixing things. I held up the folder. New lease agreements. Original rates guaranteed for 5 years. She stared at me. Is this another game? No games. I took a deep breath. Just a daughter who needs to talk to her mother. Hope stood up slowly. She's awake. But if you upset her, I won't. I promise. My mother looked small in the hospital bed. Nothing like the commanding presence who'd terrorized family dinners. She didn't look up when I entered. Mom, come to evict me from the hospital too? Her voice was weak but still carried that familiar bite. Actually, I sat down. I came to show you something. I pulled out my phone, opening a photo album. Remember this? She glanced over. It was a picture of me at 12, proudly showing off a treehouse I'd built. You said it would fall apart, I continued. But it didn't, because even then, I knew how to build things that last. Alexandra, let me finish. You were right about one thing. I did become like you. I showed her another photo, the first property I'd bought. I got so focused on proving myself that I forgot what I was trying to prove. That you're better than me? She asked bitterly. No, that I'm different from you. I opened the folder. These are new lease agreements for everyone, same rates as before. She finally looked at me properly. Why? Because winning doesn't feel like winning anymore. I placed the folder on her bed. I don't want an empire built on revenge. That's not who I am. And who are you? Someone who builds things up instead of tearing them down. I pulled out one more document, including this. She took it with trembling hands. Blueprints for the factory district development. Senior living apartments, I explained, with a community center named after you. I don't understand. I'm tired of fighting, Mom, tired of proving points. I want to build something meaningful. The door opened. Stephen stood there, surprise crossing his face. Sorry, he said. I didn't know. Stay, I said quickly. Please. He hesitated, then entered. My mother looked between us. The divorce papers, she said softly. Did you sign them? No. I pulled them out, torn in half, because Stephen was right. I'm a builder, not a destroyer. Alex, Stephen started. I know it won't fix everything, I continued, but I want to try to rebuild what matters. My mother touched the blueprints again. Why name it after me? Because despite everything, you taught me my most valuable lesson, the difference between power and strength. Power tears things down. Strength builds them up. Hope appeared in the doorway, Michael behind her. Is this real? Michael asked, gesturing to the lease papers. No tricks? No tricks. I stood up. I'm offering a fresh start for all of us. Just like that? Hope's voice was skeptical. No, not just like that. We'll need rules, boundaries, real relationships, not power plays. I looked at my mother, starting with honest conversations. I don't know how, my mother whispered. Neither do I, but I know how to build things. Maybe we start there. Stephen moved closer, taking my hand. Together? Together? I squeezed his hand, then addressed the room. I'm not giving up my success. I worked too hard for it, but I want it to mean something more than revenge. The community center? My mother said slowly. Could I help with the planning? I'd like that. I smiled. You always did have an eye for design. Hope wiped her eyes. What about family dinners? New tradition? I suggested. Everyone cooks. Everyone contributes. No more power plays. And the building, Michael asked, stays under my management, but with open communication, proper channels for complaints, and mutual respect. My mother reached for my hand. For the first time in years, perhaps ever, she looked at me without judgment. You really did build something amazing, she said softly. I'm still building, I replied. And this time, I want to build it right. Stephen wrapped an arm around me. That's the Alex I married, looking around the room, at Stephen's proud smile, Hope's cautious hope, Michael's thoughtful expression, and my mother's tears. I realized something. Success wasn't about proving people wrong, it was about proving to yourself that you could be right. So, I said, pulling out my phone, who wants to see the preliminary designs for the community center? As my family gathered around offering suggestions and actually listening to each other, I felt something shift. This wasn't an ending. It wasn't even really a new beginning. It was simply the next floor in something I'd been building all along. A legacy of strength, not power. And this time, I was building it with the right blueprint.